Hey everybody, hopefully this audio is not too bad. Got one of those new iPhones where you've got to have this connection in there, so I can't plug it in and use the earphones. So apologies if it's a little bit crackly, but I'll try my best. I just wanted to quickly jump on today and just show you some data from a gentleman who came in the other day. 60-year-old male, cyclist, just rides recreationally, just for fun. And he jumped on a training program 3 months ago, and he came in for his follow-up test this week. So it was about 3.5, 4 months in between, so he didn't quite get in before the end of the program. But I just wanted to, that's not good, there we go. I just wanted to quickly just show you the before and after, because I get a lot of people who sort of contact me and say, look, you know, I'm 55 or I'm 60 or I'm 70 years of age. I don't think I can get much benefit out of training, but I just want to see where I'm at and see what I can squeeze out of myself. And this is probably a good example of somebody, like most people can, a good example of an older athlete, 60 plus, who can get good benefit out of training. So let's flip over to the before training here first. So this is on 28th of the 9th, and first things first, max values did not change, okay? So 118 litres of ventilation. We're at an absolute VO2 max of 3137. Heart rate got to 182 was the max there, by things 30 seconds into 240 watts. If we jump back to the other one, we'll see that's very similar. 118 litres of ventilation, 3075 mils of oxygen, so insignificant change there. Exactly the same point in the test. So in terms of max values, unchanged for this individual. But what we do get a significant improvement on is a few things here. Actually, I'll start with heart rate. Let's go with heart rate. So this is the exact same test. It was a 30 watt ramp every 3 minutes. Same starting point, same end point. So for example, let's just take some random points. I'll take this one here. So 6 minutes in this week, so after training, 6 minutes in, heart rate was 127 beats. Last time, 6 minutes in, heart rate was 140 beats, okay? So his heart rate is decreased 13 beats a minute post-training. Take another random point, let's jump on this one here. 9 minutes in at 154 before training. 9 minutes in, 141 post-training. So 13 beats, let's jump right at the top end even. So after training, 168 at 1330. 1330, we are at 179, so 11 beats. So what we can see is at every stage, we're about 10 to 14 beats lower post-training than we were pre, okay? Now the reason for that, because max values haven't changed. Max heart rate was even very similar. So there's only 1 or 2 beats difference in max heart rate, slightly lower post-training. But the reason we see such a significant improvement is because of this fraction of expired oxygen graph. So for anyone watching this who's not super familiar with some of this stuff, I might put some links below to sort of educate you on that a bit. But fraction of expired oxygen, it's basically the oxygen wastage. So in the air, we've got 21% oxygen. We breathe it in, we use up some of it, and we breathe the rest of it out. So what we see here is what we're breathing out. So 21 comes in. If we have about 16.25 coming out, which is about where this line is at, that means we're using 4.75% oxygen. Okay, you see that remains steady, and then it starts to decline at the end. So what this means right at the end, although we're breathing in a lot more air, total air, which is ventilation, we're getting less bang for buck out of the oxygen. So we've got 21 still coming in, but we've only got 17.5 coming out, therefore we're using up 3.5% of it, okay? So we want this to be as low as possible. Lower is better. Lower means we're wasting less oxygen, therefore we're using more up. So what we see post-training, jump on the fraction of expired oxygen, pre-training it was at this sort of 16.25 mark here, before it declined, whereas you can see post-training we're right down at 15.5, 15.75 here. So if we go from 16.25 to say 15.75, the fraction of expired oxygen is now decreased by 0.5%. So if you go from using 4.75% oxygen here to now using 5.25%, it's only an extra 0.5%, but relatively speaking, we're looking at about a 15 to 17% increase in relative oxygen usage. So we're getting out of the air we're breathing in, post-training, we're extracting more of it, we're using up more of that oxygen. Because we're using up more oxygen, we're not going to have to breathe in as much total air because we're getting more bang for buck out of it, and we're not going to have to circulate it as hard, so heart rate's going to decrease as well because we don't need to circulate as much, right? So this is a really positive adaptation. So although the peak values haven't changed, everything sub-maximal has, which is obviously where you're going to be spending most of your training time and most of your racing time if you're into racing as well. So if we take a look at ventilation, what we should see is that in the first half, it should be significantly decreased, whereas at the back end, it'll be relatively the same or relatively unchanged because the max values weren't any different. So if we again take some random values, 3 minutes in at 36.9 ventilation after, 3 minutes in, where are we? 3 minutes in, we're at 42.9. You can see it never even gets below 40 prior to training. Another random value, let's take this one here. 8 minutes in, 71.7. Last time, and 58.2 this time. Okay, so again, is that 58, what was it? 58 down to, yeah, so we're looking at like 13 litres less air. And the reason we can breathe in less air is mainly because this fraction of expired oxygen graph is a lot better post-training, but also because as a chronic adaptation to exercise training, our heart will get bigger as well. So as a summary of this individual, what we find is all his power zones increase, so he could hold higher wattages at a lower intensity, so higher wattages in his like endurance aerobic zone. His max didn't change, but all that bottom end stuff did. And the reason it did is because fraction of expired oxygen decreased, which is good. And the reason it decreased is because I'll quickly pull it up actually, we did a lot of aerobic based sessions, so zone 2 and zone 4 stuff. So all here, this is all red because he didn't have his Garmin hooked up to Training Peaks. He was just on one of those 3-month programs released all at once. But you can see like the majority of the sessions, endurance zone with VO2 intervals, bike VO2 max intervals, there was a stage where all 3 sessions had VO2 max, high intensity VO2 max intervals in them. And then we sort of shifted over to anaerobic type intervals, some fartlek stuff for threshold, but we always had the endurance zone stuff in there. So the reason that he was able to adapt wasn't because he was doing so much more. You can see, look, 3 hours 55, 3:08, like we're doing not much training. 3 times a week, no more than 4 hours a week in total. And the reason that he could adapt so well was just because we were hitting the right zones, hitting the right targets. We knew what he needed to do, so you just match up the training method with the physiological weakness, and you see the result in the testing. So for anybody who's sort of maybe an older athlete, 60 plus, don't feel like you can't get any benefit through measuring your results. Your peak values might not change because VO2 max, it doesn't change as significantly the older you get, but there's a lot more to do. Like aerobic capacity, fraction of expired coming down can always improve. Lactate threshold can always improve. Heart can get bigger. You can still become more efficient. Hopefully that was a useful little insight into some of the data pre and post testing. I might put a couple of links below with some more examples as well. But yeah, get some discussion going and let me know what you think. Let me know if you want some more of this stuff up as well. It doesn't take me long to do, so more than happy to get on the computer and record some stuff. But yeah, let me know what you think, guys.